I recognize the senator from Iowa.
Soon we'll be voting on the nomination of Jamieson Greer of Maryland to be United States Trade Representative. I will be supporting that nomination. I voted for his nomination to get out of the Finance Committee because I believe we need a clear change from the last 4 years when there was never any attempt to do anything to reduce trade barriers. Unlike his predecessor, I'm confident that Mr. Greer will pursue an aggressive trade strategy that includes opening access to new markets through new trade deals. I also believe that Mr. Greer will work to level the playing field for U.S. farmers to compete with Brazil fairly and to deal with China head-on. As my colleagues know, I'm a free and fair trader, and though I would not like to see extreme tariffs, I'm hopeful that Mr. Greer and President Trump will bring us to a freer and more fair trade. We often think of Europe, Brazil, Japan, South Korea, China as big problems for us when it comes to trade. I'd like to remind my colleagues that there's about 190 other countries on this globe that we can seek agreements with, and taking time to seek those agreements would be good. Along this line, Senator Bozeman, chairman of the Ag Committee, and I, a member of the Finance Committee, which has jurisdiction over trade, sent letters to members of the Finance Committee, Agriculture Committee, and Ways and Means Committee of the House of Representatives. We ask our colleagues to listen to somebody that's had some experience dealing with some of these smaller nations with bilateral trade agreements. That person is a person by the name of Al Johnson. During the George W. Bush presidency, he negotiated trade agreements with about a dozen countries. It added up to about 6 or 7 different agreements, all bilateral, which I think is the way that President Trump prefers bilateral negotiations rather than multilateral negotiations. He was very successful, and that success can be measured by the fact that he has shown on his studies that with these dozen countries that were negotiated bilateral free trade agreements during the George W. Bush administration, that we have increased our trade with those nations by about 600%. So I hope my colleagues will give Al Johnson a chance to talk to them. I know he's already visited with some members of this United States Senate, and he's very vigorously promoting the idea that we ought to have bilateral negotiations, and with a lot of countries that we never think about that could be beneficial to American exports. I yield the floor and suggest the absence of a quorum.
The clerk will call the roll.